There is no need to do anything right now except simply settle into this calm space of slow science and quiet information. Nothing is required from you. Nothing is expected. The words will move gently, at a steady pace, and each idea will arrive softly and then fade without effort. The subject is leaves, and the simple natural processes connected to them, presented in a way that stays smooth and even. A single leaf, in ordinary daylight, can slowly adjust its internal water movement through a process called transpiration, where moisture gently exits through tiny openings called stomata, and this happens continuously without interruption. This is just one small example of how leaves quietly operate all the time without needing attention. Now the pace returns to calm continuity. Leaves exist in a constant state of slow biological balance. They are part of trees, but they also act like independent systems, managing light, air, and water in ways that remain steady across seasons. Inside each leaf, there are thin layers of tissue that support the movement of nutrients. Chlorophyll, the green pigment, is spread across these layers, and it absorbs light in a very quiet and stable process that supports photosynthesis. Photosynthesis itself is a gentle chemical transformation. Carbon dioxide enters the leaf, water is drawn upward from the roots, and light energy is slowly converted into sugars that feed the tree. Oxygen is released as a natural byproduct, and this exchange continues without pause during daylight hours. The process does not rush. It remains consistent, measured, and calm. Leaves also respond to changes in temperature and humidity. When the air becomes drier, the openings on the leaf surface can adjust slightly to reduce water loss. This adjustment is not dramatic. It happens in small, controlled steps that maintain balance inside the plant. Even when environmental conditions shift, the leaf continues its quiet function. Some leaves are broad and flat, allowing them to capture more sunlight. Others are narrow, designed for environments where conserving water is more important. These shapes are not random. They reflect long periods of adaptation, where plants slowly adjusted to their surroundings over many generations. Each form carries a record of environmental balance, written in structure rather than words. In many trees, leaves follow a seasonal cycle. During warmer months, they remain active, processing light and supporting growth. As temperatures begin to fall, chemical signals inside the tree gradually shift. Chlorophyll levels reduce, and other pigments such as carotenoids and anthocyanins become more visible. This is what gently changes leaf color from green to shades of yellow, orange, and soft red. The transformation is gradual and smooth, occurring over days and weeks rather than moments. Even as leaves change color, they continue to function for a short period. They still manage energy flow and water movement, although at a slower rate. Eventually, a separation layer forms at the base of the leaf stem. This layer slowly cuts off nutrient flow, allowing the leaf to detach naturally. The falling of leaves is a controlled biological process, not a sudden event. It is part of a cycle that conserves energy for the tree during colder seasons. After leaves fall, they begin to break down on the ground. Microorganisms, fungi, and insects participate in this process. The leaf structure gradually softens, and nutrients return to the soil. This supports future plant growth in a quiet cycle of renewal. Nothing is wasted. Everything is slowly reused in natural form. A soft welcome now settles into this space of calm information. There is no need to focus too closely on any single detail. The information can simply pass by like gentle air movement through trees. Leaves are simple parts of nature, but they are also connected to complex systems that operate steadily without interruption. They manage light, air, water, and time in ways that remain balanced and consistent. This is a quiet observation of natural processes. The goal is only to remain steady and slow. Each fact stands on its own, without urgency or emphasis. Leaves continue their function whether noticed or not. Their processes remain stable across seasons, adapting in small ways that maintain life in plants and trees. Inside forests, leaves create a layered environment. Light filters through multiple levels of canopy before reaching the ground. This filtering creates soft patterns of brightness and shadow. The upper leaves absorb most of the sunlight, while lower leaves adjust to lower light conditions. Each layer contributes to an overall system of balance, where energy is shared and distributed efficiently across the structure of the forest. Water movement in leaves is also continuous. It begins in the soil, travels through roots, moves up through long internal channels in the trunk, and reaches each leaf through fine vascular structures. This movement is driven by small differences in pressure and evaporation. It does not rely on active force in the way animals move. It is a passive, steady flow that continues as long as conditions allow. Even the surface of a leaf has structure that supports calm efficiency. Tiny waxy coatings help reduce water loss. Microscopic pores open and close in response to internal and external signals. These features work together without awareness or effort, maintaining a stable internal environment. Leaves also contribute to air regulation. Through gas exchange, they help maintain the balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the atmosphere. This process is constant during active periods of growth. It connects plant life with atmospheric systems in a continuous loop of exchange. Different types of leaves behave in slightly different ways, but the underlying processes remain similar. Whether a leaf is from a tall oak, a small shrub, or a simple houseplant, the same basic mechanisms are present. Light absorption, gas exchange, and water regulation all follow steady natural rules. In dry environments, some leaves develop thicker surfaces to reduce water loss. In wet environments, leaves may be broader and thinner, allowing faster exchange with the surrounding air. These variations are gradual adaptations shaped over long periods of time. Each adjustment reflects a balance between survival and efficiency. Leaves also play a role in temperature regulation for trees. By releasing water vapor, they help cool the surrounding air. This cooling effect is subtle but continuous, especially in dense forest areas. It contributes to the stability of local climates in a quiet, ongoing way. Even at night, leaves remain part of the system. While photosynthesis slows or stops without light, other processes continue at reduced levels. Cellular maintenance, internal transport, and structural support remain active in a low-energy state. The leaf does not become inactive. It simply shifts into a quieter mode of operation. Over time, leaves accumulate small environmental changes. Dust may settle on surfaces. Light patterns may shift with seasonal movement of the sun. Rain may gently wash surfaces clean. Each interaction becomes part of the leaf's experience, though without memory or awareness in a human sense. It is simply continuous existence within a natural cycle. The overall presence of leaves in nature is steady and widespread. They form canopies, clusters, and layers that define landscapes. They contribute to the appearance of forests, gardens, and fields. Their presence shapes the visual and physical structure of many environments on Earth. As this slow observation continues, the focus remains on stability and calm understanding. Leaves are part of a larger system that functions without interruption. Each process is simple when viewed individually, yet together they create a complex and balanced natural network. The pace remains unchanged, and the information continues to move gently forward without urgency or direction. Leaves continue their quiet function across many different environments, each one following the same basic biological patterns while adapting in small, gradual ways to local conditions. The structure inside a leaf is arranged with a simple kind of efficiency that does not change quickly. Veins spread through the leaf like a soft internal network, carrying water and nutrients in steady movement. These veins are part of the plant's vascular system, and they remain active as long as the leaf is attached and functional. Inside these veins, two main pathways exist. One carries water and dissolved minerals upward from the roots, and the other transports sugars produced during photosynthesis to other parts of the plant. These flows remain balanced and continuous, adjusting slowly depending on light, temperature, and overall plant activity. Nothing about this movement is sudden. It is always gradual and regulated. The surface of a leaf is covered by a thin protective layer called the cuticle. This layer is made of waxy substances that reduce water loss and protect internal tissues from external stress. The cuticle is not thick or heavy. It is delicate but effective, allowing light to enter while maintaining internal stability. Beneath it, cells are arranged in organized layers that support both light absorption and gas exchange. Just below the surface, the upper layer of cells is usually tightly packed. These cells contain many chloroplasts, which are small structures where chlorophyll is located. Chlorophyll is responsible for absorbing light energy, mostly from sunlight, and beginning the process of converting it into chemical energy. This process continues in a steady rhythm during daylight hours, adjusting naturally to the intensity of light without abrupt changes. Lower in the leaf, the internal structure becomes more open. Small air spaces allow gases to move freely between cells. Carbon dioxide enters these spaces and reaches the cells where it is needed for photosynthesis. Oxygen, produced as a byproduct, moves out in the opposite direction. This exchange is continuous and balanced, forming a quiet cycle that supports both the plant and the surrounding atmosphere. Leaves can also adjust their internal activity based on light exposure. In shaded environments, leaves often become thinner and contain fewer structural layers, allowing them to capture limited light more efficiently. In brighter environments, leaves may develop thicker structures to manage higher energy input without damage. These differences are subtle responses to long-term environmental conditions. Some leaves are classified as sun leaves, while others are known as shade leaves. Sun leaves are adapted to high light intensity and tend to be smaller but denser. Shade leaves are often larger and thinner, designed to capture more diffuse light. Both types serve the same basic purpose, but their forms reflect the conditions in which they developed. Water regulation in leaves remains one of the most important ongoing processes. Through small openings called stomata, water vapor slowly exits the leaf. These stomata can open and close depending on internal signals and external conditions. When water availability is low, they may close slightly to reduce loss. When conditions are stable, they open to allow gas exchange to continue. This regulation happens without conscious control, guided entirely by biological signals. The rhythm of stomata opening and closing follows daily cycles. During daylight, they are more likely to be open to support photosynthesis. At night, they often close to conserve water. This pattern is consistent and repeated, forming a natural rhythm that aligns with environmental light cycles. Different plant species show variations in how they manage these processes. Some plants in dry environments have evolved to minimize water loss even further. Their stomata may remain closed for longer periods or open only under specific conditions. Other plants in humid environments maintain more frequent gas exchange because water conservation is less critical. Leaves also respond to gravity and light direction in subtle ways. This response is known as phototropism, where plant growth and orientation are influenced by light. Over time, leaves and stems adjust their positions to maximize light exposure. These movements are slow and continuous, not visible in real time, but they shape the overall structure of plants. In forests, the arrangement of leaves creates layers of light distribution. The upper canopy absorbs most of the direct sunlight, while lower layers receive filtered and diffused light. This creates a gradient of energy availability from top to bottom. Each layer of leaves adapts to its position, forming a balanced vertical ecosystem. Seasonal changes introduce another layer of variation. In deciduous trees, leaves follow a cycle of growth, activity, and eventual shedding. During spring, new leaves emerge gradually as temperatures rise and daylight increases. These young leaves are often softer and more flexible, slowly developing their full structure as time passes. In summer, leaves reach their full functional capacity. Photosynthesis operates at steady levels, supporting growth and energy storage within the plant. The environment during this period is often stable enough to maintain consistent leaf activity over long durations. As autumn approaches, internal signals within the plant begin to shift. Chlorophyll production decreases, and the green color of leaves slowly fades. Other pigments that were always present but less visible begin to show more clearly. This creates the gradual shift in color that appears across many trees, moving through soft transitions rather than sudden changes. Eventually, a separation layer forms at the base of each leaf stem. This layer gradually blocks nutrient flow, and the connection between leaf and tree becomes weaker over time. The leaf eventually detaches and falls, not as a sudden break but as a controlled release. This process helps the tree conserve energy during colder seasons when maintaining leaves would require more resources. Once on the ground, leaves enter a slow decomposition process. Microorganisms such as bacteria and fungi begin breaking down the leaf material. Insects also participate in this process, contributing to the gradual fragmentation of the structure. Over time, the leaf loses its rigidity and becomes part of the soil. The nutrients released during decomposition return to the earth. These nutrients are then absorbed by plant roots and reused in new growth. This cycle continues without interruption, forming a continuous loop of transformation between plant life and soil. Even in decomposition, leaves remain part of a larger system of balance. Nothing within the leaf is wasted. Every component is eventually reused or transformed into another form of biological material. This slow recycling process supports the long-term stability of ecosystems. In evergreen trees, leaves behave differently. Instead of shedding all at once, they are replaced gradually over time. Individual leaves may remain active for several years before being replaced. This creates a stable, continuous canopy that changes slowly across seasons without dramatic shifts. Evergreen leaves are often thicker and more resistant to environmental stress. Their structure allows them to function in colder or drier conditions where seasonal loss would not be efficient. Even so, their internal processes remain similar to those of other leaves, maintaining the same basic functions of photosynthesis and gas exchange. Across all types of plants, leaves remain central to energy production and environmental interaction. They are simple in appearance but contain many layers of organized biological activity. Each leaf operates within a quiet system of regulation that balances light, water, and gas exchange in a stable rhythm. As this slow observation continues, the processes within leaves remain steady and unchanged. They do not require attention or awareness to function. They simply continue their cycles, responding gently to environmental conditions over time. The overall system remains calm, continuous, and balanced, with each leaf contributing quietly to the larger structure of plant life. Leaves exist in nearly every climate on Earth, from cold mountain forests to warm tropical regions, and their forms reflect the environment around them in careful and gradual ways. In colder regions, many leaves are designed to endure shorter growing seasons and lower temperatures. In warmer climates, leaves often develop structures that manage heat and water in different ways. These variations emerge slowly over long periods of adaptation, shaping the appearance and function of plants without urgency or sudden change. In tropical rainforests, leaves are often broad and smooth. Large surface areas help absorb available sunlight beneath dense canopies where light is filtered through many layers above. Some rainforest leaves also have pointed tips called drip tips. These tips allow water from frequent rain to slide away efficiently, reducing the buildup of moisture on the leaf surface. The process is simple and continuous, helping maintain balance in humid conditions. In desert environments, leaves often become smaller or thicker. Some plants reduce leaf size to limit water loss in dry air. Others develop surfaces coated with fine hairs or waxes that reflect sunlight and reduce evaporation. These adaptations support survival in places where water remains limited for long periods. Even under dry conditions, the leaf continues its quiet regulation of internal balance. Some desert plants reduce leaves almost completely. In these plants, stems take over much of the photosynthetic work. Yet even in such cases, the basic relationship between light, water, and energy remains present. The plant still follows the same biological principles, only adjusted for a different environment. Leaves in aquatic plants behave differently again. Floating leaves, such as those found on water lilies, often contain air-filled tissues that help them remain at the surface of the water. Their stomata are usually located on the upper side rather than underneath, allowing gas exchange with the air above. Submerged aquatic leaves may be thinner and more flexible, moving gently with currents while absorbing dissolved gases directly from the surrounding water. The movement of leaves in wind is also connected to structure. Flexible stems and lightweight tissues allow many leaves to bend without tearing. This flexibility reduces damage during storms or strong airflow. The motion itself can appear smooth and repetitive, especially in forests where many leaves move together in soft patterns shaped by changing air currents. Some leaves have evolved shapes that reduce resistance to wind. Narrow leaves or divided leaf structures allow air to pass through more easily, reducing strain on branches. These forms reflect slow adaptation to environments where wind is a constant factor. The structure becomes part of the plant's long-term balance with its surroundings. The arrangement of leaves on stems follows patterns known as phyllotaxis. In some plants, leaves alternate from one side to another. In others, they grow opposite each other or spiral around the stem. These arrangements are connected to light exposure and space efficiency. Spiral patterns often help reduce shading between leaves, allowing each one to receive sunlight more evenly. The angles between leaves in spiral arrangements frequently relate to mathematical patterns found throughout nature. One common arrangement approximates the golden angle, helping distribute leaves efficiently around the stem. This organization is not planned or conscious. It emerges naturally through growth processes regulated by plant hormones and cellular development. Inside leaves, chloroplasts move slightly depending on light conditions. In strong light, they may reposition themselves to reduce potential damage from excess energy. In low light, they spread out to capture as much light as possible. These movements happen slowly at a microscopic level and support the ongoing balance within the leaf. Leaves also produce chemical compounds that affect interactions with insects and other organisms. Some leaves contain bitter substances that discourage grazing animals. Others release faint chemical signals when damaged, sometimes triggering nearby plants to increase their own protective responses. These exchanges occur silently and continuously within ecosystems. In forests, fallen leaves form layers on the ground known as leaf litter. This layer helps regulate soil temperature and moisture. It also provides shelter for insects, fungi, and microorganisms. As the leaves slowly decompose, they create rich organic material that supports future plant growth. The forest floor remains active beneath the surface, even when movement appears minimal. The sound associated with leaves often comes from dry surfaces brushing against one another or moving in air currents. The rustling of leaves changes depending on their size, thickness, and moisture level. Fresh leaves tend to produce softer sounds, while dry leaves create lighter and more textured movement. These sounds are created by simple physical interactions repeated many times across natural spaces. In colder seasons, when many trees lose their leaves, sunlight reaches the ground more directly. This seasonal change affects temperature, moisture, and the growth patterns of smaller plants below. When leaves return in spring, the environment shifts again into a more shaded condition. Forest ecosystems adjust gradually with these cycles, maintaining long-term balance. Some leaves are capable of storing water directly within their tissues. Succulent plants, for example, contain thick leaves filled with moisture reserves. These reserves allow survival during dry periods when rainfall becomes infrequent. The stored water supports internal functions until environmental conditions improve. Leaf color varies widely across plant species. Chlorophyll creates green tones, but other pigments contribute yellow, orange, red, silver, and even deep purple colors. These pigments may help protect the leaf from excess light, reduce oxidative stress, or support specific environmental adaptations. The colors themselves emerge through chemical properties within the cells. Young leaves often appear lighter in color than mature ones. This difference comes from developing chloroplast structures and lower concentrations of certain pigments. As leaves mature, their tissues become stronger and their colors deepen slightly. This gradual development reflects the slow pace of plant growth overall. Leaves also interact continuously with microscopic life forms. Bacteria and fungi may live harmlessly on leaf surfaces, forming tiny ecosystems invisible to the human eye. Some microorganisms benefit the plant, while others may cause disease under certain conditions. The leaf surface becomes a quiet meeting place for many forms of life operating at extremely small scales. Rain changes the condition of leaves in temporary ways. Water droplets gather along edges and veins before slowly falling away. During rainfall, leaves may bend slightly under the added weight of water. Once conditions dry again, they return to their usual position. These shifts are small and temporary, part of the ongoing interaction between plants and weather. The lifespan of a leaf depends on species and environmental conditions. Some leaves remain active for only a few weeks, while others persist for many years. Despite these differences, all leaves eventually complete the same broad cycle of growth, function, aging, and decomposition. As leaves age, their internal structures slowly change. Photosynthetic activity decreases, tissues become less flexible, and nutrient movement slows. These changes happen gradually rather than suddenly. Eventually, the leaf becomes part of the larger cycle of renewal within the ecosystem. Even after decomposition, traces of ancient leaves remain part of Earth's history. Over very long periods, compressed plant material contributed to the formation of coal deposits. Fossilized leaves preserved in stone provide information about ancient climates and ecosystems. Their shapes and vein patterns help scientists understand environmental conditions from millions of years ago. In this way, leaves connect present ecosystems with distant natural history. Their structures record adaptation, climate, and biological change across immense stretches of time. Yet the leaf itself remains quiet and simple in appearance, carrying out ordinary functions day after day without interruption. The steady rhythm of leaf activity continues in forests, fields, wetlands, mountains, and gardens, forming part of the continuous biological movement of the planet. Leaves also influence the temperature of the environments around them in slow and subtle ways. Through transpiration, water evaporates from leaf surfaces into the surrounding air, and this process creates a cooling effect. In forests with many trees, the combined cooling from millions of leaves can slightly lower local temperatures. This effect is gentle and continuous, especially during warm periods when sunlight is strong and moisture movement through plants is active. The shade created by leaves also contributes to environmental stability. Layers of foliage reduce direct sunlight reaching the ground, helping soil retain moisture for longer periods. This moderated environment supports insects, fungi, mosses, and smaller plants that depend on cooler and more stable conditions. Beneath large trees, the air often feels quieter and softer partly because of this filtered light and reduced heat. Leaves can also influence the movement of rainwater. In forests, rainfall often lands on leaves first before slowly dripping downward. This process is called interception. Instead of rain striking the soil directly, the leaves break the force of falling water into smaller drops. This reduces soil erosion and allows water to enter the ground more gradually. The canopy above becomes part of the larger water cycle of the ecosystem. Some leaves have surfaces that repel water efficiently. Tiny microscopic structures and wax layers cause water droplets to bead and roll away. This phenomenon, sometimes called the lotus effect, helps keep leaf surfaces cleaner by carrying away dust and small particles. The movement of water across these surfaces follows physical principles shaped by texture and surface chemistry. Other leaves absorb small amounts of moisture directly from fog or humid air. In cloud forests and coastal regions, this ability contributes additional water to the plant during periods when rainfall may be limited. Fine hairs or textured surfaces can help capture moisture from the atmosphere in a slow and steady way. Leaf veins provide not only transport but also structural support. Larger veins act like flexible internal frames that help maintain shape while allowing movement. Smaller veins spread outward into fine branching patterns that distribute resources across the leaf surface. These branching systems resemble river networks or root systems, following efficient patterns that appear repeatedly throughout nature. The branching angles of leaf veins often maximize coverage while minimizing material use. This efficiency allows the plant to support a wide surface area without unnecessary weight. The structure forms gradually during leaf development through controlled cellular growth directed by chemical signals inside the plant. Young leaves begin as small folded structures protected within buds. As conditions become favorable, the buds slowly open and the leaves expand outward. During this process, cells absorb water and enlarge, allowing the leaf to unfold into its mature shape. The transformation is quiet and gradual, often unnoticed from one day to the next. Some leaves emerge covered in fine hairs that protect delicate tissues from insects, sunlight, or cold temperatures. As the leaf matures, these hairs may disappear or remain depending on the species. The textures created by these surfaces vary widely, from smooth and glossy to soft and velvety. Leaves also participate in seasonal timing. Changes in daylight length influence plant hormones that regulate leaf growth and shedding. Even before temperatures shift significantly, many plants begin responding to shorter days. This sensitivity to light duration helps coordinate seasonal cycles across entire forests and landscapes. In autumn, the changing colors of leaves occur because chlorophyll breaks down more quickly than other pigments. Yellow and orange pigments called carotenoids remain visible after green fades. Red pigments known as anthocyanins may develop in some species during cooler conditions. The resulting colors appear gradually across landscapes as countless leaves undergo similar chemical changes. These color shifts are connected to nutrient recovery inside the tree. Before leaves fall, many valuable nutrients are moved back into branches and roots for storage during winter. The tree conserves resources in preparation for colder conditions. The leaf slowly transitions from active growth to quiet release. In evergreen forests, this seasonal transformation happens more slowly and continuously. Individual leaves age and fall over time while new leaves replace them gradually. The forest remains green year-round because not all leaves change at once. This creates a stable visual rhythm that shifts gently rather than dramatically. Some leaves can orient themselves during the day to track sunlight. This movement, known as heliotropism, allows plants to maximize energy absorption. Sunflower leaves and certain other plants show these slow directional changes as they follow light across the sky. The movement happens through small adjustments in cell pressure within stems and leaf bases. At night, some plants reposition their leaves into different resting arrangements. This phenomenon is called nyctinasty. Leaves may fold downward or close partially in response to darkness and internal biological rhythms. The purpose varies among species and may relate to temperature conservation or protection from nighttime moisture. The texture of leaves changes over time as environmental conditions affect their surfaces. Wind exposure can thicken tissues slightly, while shade conditions may produce thinner, softer leaves. Nutrient availability also influences size, color, and strength. These variations emerge slowly through development rather than through sudden transformation. Leaves contribute to the atmosphere not only through oxygen production but also through the release of organic compounds. Some trees emit faint natural chemicals into the air, especially during warm weather. In forests, these compounds can influence scent, cloud formation, and interactions between plants and insects. The forest atmosphere becomes a mixture of moisture, air, and subtle plant-produced molecules. The scent of crushed leaves often comes from oils or chemical compounds stored inside cells. When the leaf surface breaks, these substances are released into the air. Mint, eucalyptus, pine, and many herbs produce recognizable aromas through this process. These chemicals may serve protective functions for the plant while also shaping human experiences of natural environments. Leaves are also sensitive to pollution and environmental stress. Air quality, soil condition, and water availability all influence leaf health. Some species are particularly sensitive and can show visible changes when environmental conditions decline. Scientists sometimes study leaves to monitor pollution levels and ecosystem stability over time. Microscopic openings in leaves respond to atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations. Rising levels of carbon dioxide can influence how widely stomata open, affecting water use and gas exchange. These responses are subtle but important in understanding long-term interactions between plants and changing climates. Some leaves contain pigments that protect against intense ultraviolet radiation. These compounds absorb excess energy and help reduce cellular damage. Plants growing at high elevations or in strong sunlight often develop additional protective pigmentation for this reason. Insects interact with leaves constantly. Caterpillars feed on soft tissues, beetles create holes or patterns, and aphids draw fluids from veins. At the same time, leaves may produce defensive chemicals or structural barriers that reduce damage. These interactions form part of a continuous ecological balance between plants and animals. Birds and small mammals also rely on leaves for shelter and nesting material. Dense foliage provides protection from predators, wind, and direct sunlight. In this way, leaves shape habitats for many different forms of life, creating layers of structure throughout ecosystems. Even the falling of leaves contributes to movement within forests. As leaves drift downward, they settle across soil surfaces, streams, rocks, and roots. Over time, layers accumulate and slowly decompose, softening the ground and enriching the earth beneath. This continuous cycle of growth, activity, change, and return repeats quietly across seasons and landscapes. Leaves emerge, function, shift with light and weather, and eventually return their materials to the soil. The process continues steadily without pause, forming one of the many slow rhythms that shape the natural world. Leaves have existed on Earth for hundreds of millions of years, and their forms have changed slowly through long periods of biological development. Early plants did not always have the broad leaves seen today. Ancient vascular plants often possess simpler structures for capturing light. Over time, as atmospheric conditions changed and ecosystems became more complex, leaves gradually evolved into more efficient forms for photosynthesis and gas exchange. The development of broad leaves is believed to have been influenced partly by changes in atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. As carbon dioxide concentrations declined over geological time, larger leaf surfaces may have helped plants absorb enough carbon for efficient energy production. These changes occurred gradually across immense stretches of time, shaping forests and landscapes long before human observation. Fossilized leaves provide quiet records of ancient climates. Scientists study the shapes, sizes, and vein structures preserved in stone to understand environmental conditions from distant periods in Earth's history. Smooth-edged leaves are often associated with warmer climates, while leaves with serrated edges appear more frequently in cooler regions. These patterns help researchers reconstruct ancient ecosystems without direct observation. Some fossil leaves remain remarkably detailed, preserving delicate vein networks and surface impressions after millions of years. Sediment slowly covered the leaves, protecting their structure as minerals replaced organic material over time. These fossils act as still images from ancient forests, holding traces of environments that no longer exist. The arrangement of veins inside leaves follows patterns that distribute resources efficiently while maintaining flexibility. Large central veins branch into smaller and smaller pathways until even tiny regions of the leaf receive water and nutrients. This branching system resembles networks seen elsewhere in nature, such as rivers spreading across landscapes or blood vessels moving through living organisms. Mathematical principles often appear in leaf structures. Fractal-like patterns allow repeated branching at different scales, creating efficient transport systems with minimal material use. These repeating forms emerge naturally through growth processes rather than deliberate design. The result is a balance between strength, flexibility, and energy efficiency. Some leaves have evolved highly specialized forms. Carnivorous plants, for example, use modified leaves to capture insects in nutrient-poor environments. Pitcher plants form hollow leaf structures that collect rainwater and trap small animals. Venus flytraps use sensitive trigger hairs connected to rapid movements in specialized leaf tissues. Even these unusual adaptations remain connected to the basic biological role of leaves as structures interacting with light, water, and nutrients. Other plants develop leaves shaped like needles or scales. Conifer trees such as pines and firs use needle-like leaves that reduce water loss and tolerate cold conditions. Their smaller surface areas and thick protective coatings help maintain internal stability during winter. These leaves may remain attached for several years before eventually falling and being replaced. Some tropical plants produce leaves large enough to collect significant amounts of water on their surfaces during rainfall. Others create overlapping arrangements that direct water toward roots. In each case, leaf structure becomes part of the plant's broader relationship with its environment. The color patterns found on some leaves serve multiple purposes. Variegated leaves contain regions with different pigment concentrations, creating pale or patterned areas. These variations may result from genetic differences, developmental conditions, or adaptive functions related to light management. The patterns appear calm and decorative, though they arise from biological processes rather than intention. Some leaves change orientation during periods of intense sunlight to reduce overheating. Vertical leaf positions expose less surface area to direct midday sun while still receiving light during morning and evening hours. This adjustment supports temperature regulation and water conservation in hot environments. The thickness of leaves also varies widely between species. Thin leaves allow rapid gas exchange and fast growth but may lose water more easily. Thick leaves conserve moisture and often survive longer in dry or stressful conditions. These differences reflect trade-offs shaped gradually through evolution and environmental adaptation. Leaves interact closely with fungi beneath the soil through the root systems of plants. Sugars produced in leaves travel downward into roots, where some are exchanged with beneficial fungi. These fungi help plants absorb nutrients and water more effectively. In return, the plant provides energy produced through photosynthesis. This underground partnership connects leaf activity to larger ecological networks hidden below the surface. Forests sometimes share resources through these fungal connections. Nutrients and chemical signals may move between trees using underground networks associated with roots and fungi. The sugars created in leaves become part of these exchanges, linking individual plants into broader systems of cooperation and balance. In windy environments, leaf movement helps regulate temperature and gas exchange. Airflow removes excess heat and refreshes the thin layer of air surrounding the leaf surface. This improves the efficiency of photosynthesis and transpiration. Gentle movement also prevents moisture from remaining too long on surfaces, reducing the growth of harmful fungi. Some leaves produce tiny crystals within their tissues. These crystals may store excess minerals or discourage herbivores from feeding on the plant. Under magnification, these structures appear geometric and highly organized, forming naturally through chemical processes inside cells. The internal cells of leaves are filled mostly with water. This water creates pressure against cell walls, helping maintain shape and firmness. When water availability decreases, the pressure drops and leaves may wilt temporarily. If water returns, the cells regain firmness and the leaf slowly returns to its normal position. Leaf surfaces are home to microscopic ecosystems. Bacteria, fungi, and tiny organisms live across these surfaces in constantly changing communities. Scientists sometimes refer to this as the phyllosphere. Conditions on leaf surfaces vary with humidity, sunlight, and temperature, creating diverse environments on a very small scale. Rainwater moving across leaves can carry nutrients and microorganisms downward into the soil. Dust particles collected from the air may also settle on leaves before eventually washing away. In this way, leaves participate in exchanges between atmosphere and earth through simple physical processes repeated over time. The lifespan of leaves depends partly on the cost of producing them. Fast-growing plants often create thinner leaves with shorter lifespans, allowing rapid energy capture during favorable conditions. Slower-growing plants may invest more resources into durable leaves that persist for longer periods. Both strategies support survival in different environments. Some plants produce leaves only during wet seasons, remaining dormant during dry periods. Others maintain leaves continuously when environmental conditions stay stable year-round. Seasonal timing reflects long-term adaptation to local climate patterns. In urban environments, leaves help reduce heat by shading surfaces and releasing moisture into the air. Trees planted along streets can lower surrounding temperatures and soften the intensity of sunlight on buildings and pavement. Leaves also trap small airborne particles, contributing quietly to air quality improvement. The sound of rainfall passing through leaves changes depending on canopy density and leaf shape. Broad leaves create heavier and more separated drops, while fine leaves diffuse rainfall into softer patterns. Forest acoustics are shaped partly by these repeated interactions between water and foliage. Light passing through leaves changes in color and intensity. Green pigments absorb certain wavelengths while allowing others to pass through or reflect outward. This filtered light creates the soft green atmosphere often experienced beneath dense tree canopies. At dawn, leaves slowly warm as sunlight returns. During the day, their temperatures fluctuate with light intensity, wind, and moisture levels. At night, cooling begins again as energy radiates away into the atmosphere. These temperature changes occur quietly across entire landscapes each day. Even in stillness, leaves remain active. Cells continue transporting materials, regulating pressure, repairing structures, and responding to environmental conditions. The movements are too small and gradual to notice directly, yet they continue constantly within every living leaf. Across forests, grasslands, wetlands, deserts, mountains, and gardens, leaves maintain these steady cycles of exchange and balance. They absorb light, move water, interact with air, support ecosystems, and eventually return to the soil. The rhythm continues calmly through seasons and years, repeating without interruption across the natural world. Leaves vary greatly in size, yet even the smallest leaves perform the same essential functions as the largest. Tiny leaves on alpine plants conserve heat and reduce exposure to strong mountain winds, while enormous tropical leaves gather sunlight beneath dense canopies. Regardless of scale, each leaf remains part of the same slow biological pattern of light capture, water movement, and gas exchange. Some of the largest leaves in the plant world belong to tropical species adapted for shaded environments. Their broad surfaces allow them to collect diffuse light that filters through many layers of forest canopy above. In contrast, plants exposed to intense sunlight often produce smaller leaves that reduce overheating and water loss. These differences reflect environmental balance rather than competition or urgency. Leaf edges also differ between species. Some are smooth and rounded, while others are serrated or deeply divided. Serrated edges may help water move away from the surface more efficiently or influence airflow and temperature regulation near the leaf margin. Deeply divided leaves can reduce wind resistance and improve cooling by increasing air movement around the surface. The shape of a leaf influences how sunlight falls across it during the day. Long, narrow leaves receive light differently from wide, circular leaves, and angled leaves interact with changing sunlight throughout the seasons. Plants gradually develop structures suited to the light patterns of their environments over long periods of growth and adaptation. Inside the cells of leaves, photosynthesis continues through a sequence of chemical reactions that operate quietly and continuously during daylight. Light energy absorbed by chlorophyll helps drive the conversion of carbon dioxide and water into sugars. These sugars provide energy not only for the leaf itself but for roots, stems, flowers, fruits, and seeds throughout the entire plant. The oxygen released during photosynthesis enters the atmosphere through the stomata. This oxygen becomes part of the larger planetary cycle connecting plants, animals, water, and air. Forests and grasslands together contribute significantly to atmospheric oxygen levels through countless small exchanges happening continuously in leaves across the world. During periods of drought, many leaves respond by reducing activity. Stomata close more frequently to conserve water, and growth slows until moisture returns. Some plants curl their leaves inward slightly to reduce exposed surface area. Others temporarily shed leaves altogether to survive dry conditions. These responses occur gradually as part of the plant's regulation systems. Cold temperatures also affect leaf behavior. Frost can damage delicate tissues by freezing water inside cells. In response, some plants produce compounds that lower the freezing point of internal fluids or protect cellular structures during cold periods. Evergreen needles, with their thick coatings and reduced surface area, are especially suited to surviving freezing conditions. The process of leaf emergence in spring often follows temperature accumulation over time. Trees remain dormant through winter until warming conditions reach certain thresholds. Buds then slowly open, revealing folded leaves that expand over days or weeks. Entire forests shift gradually from bare branches to layered green canopies through this quiet seasonal transition. Young leaves are often more vulnerable than mature ones. Their tissues are softer, and their protective coatings are still developing. Many young leaves contain reddish pigments that may help shield them from intense light during early growth stages. As the leaf matures, chlorophyll levels increase and green tones become more dominant. The movement of nutrients into and out of leaves is carefully regulated. Minerals absorbed by roots travel upward through xylem vessels, while sugars produced in photosynthesis move outward through phloem tissues. These transport systems connect the leaf with every other part of the plant in continuous exchange. Leaves also communicate stress signals within plants. If insects damage one section of foliage, chemical messages can travel to nearby leaves, triggering increased production of protective compounds. This internal signaling allows plants to adjust gradually to changing conditions without centralized control. Some trees release leaves during drought instead of winter. In tropical dry forests, trees may shed foliage during the driest months to reduce water loss. When rains return, new leaves emerge and activity increases again. Seasonal leaf cycles therefore vary depending on local climate patterns rather than temperature alone. The arrangement of leaves within forest canopies influences biodiversity below. Dense shade-tolerant layers support mosses and fungi, while gaps in foliage allow sunlight to reach the ground and encourage the growth of shrubs and young trees. Small changes in canopy structure can gradually alter entire ecosystems over time. Leaf decomposition rates differ depending on climate and species. Thin leaves in warm, wet environments may break down quickly, returning nutrients to the soil within months. Tough evergreen needles decompose more slowly, sometimes remaining on forest floors for years before fully integrating into the soil. Fungi play a major role in breaking down fallen leaves. Their thread-like structures spread through damp leaf litter, releasing enzymes that separate complex plant materials into simpler substances. Earthworms, insects, and bacteria also contribute to this slow recycling process. Together they transform fallen leaves into fertile organic matter. In wetlands, fallen leaves often enter streams and ponds. Aquatic insects and microorganisms feed on the decomposing material, connecting forest ecosystems with freshwater food webs. Nutrients from leaves therefore continue moving through ecosystems long after the leaves detach from plants. Some leaves are naturally coated with oils that reduce water accumulation and discourage insects or fungal growth. Eucalyptus leaves, for example, contain aromatic oils that contribute to their distinctive scent. Pine needles contain resins that help protect tissues from environmental stress and herbivores. Leaves also influence humidity levels nearby. Large groups of plants release water vapor into the atmosphere through transpiration, increasing local moisture. Forests often generate humid microclimates partly because of this continuous exchange of water between plants and air. The seasonal soundscape of forests changes with leaves as well. In spring and summer, dense foliage absorbs and softens sound. In autumn and winter, bare branches allow sound to travel more openly through forests. The acoustic qualities of landscapes shift gradually with changes in leaf cover. At sunrise, dew sometimes forms on leaf surfaces when temperatures cool overnight and moisture condenses from the air. Tiny droplets gather along veins and edges before evaporating after morning light returns. These droplets briefly alter how leaves reflect sunlight, creating soft patterns of brightness. Some leaves orient themselves to reduce water accumulation after rainfall. Slight angles allow droplets to move downward and away from the surface. This reduces prolonged moisture exposure that might otherwise encourage fungal growth. The life of a leaf is shaped by continuous interaction with air currents, sunlight, rainfall, microorganisms, insects, temperature shifts, and seasonal rhythms. Each influence leaves subtle effects on structure and function over time. Yet the leaf remains steady in purpose throughout these changes. Even when leaves appear motionless, internal activity continues constantly. Sugars move through tissues, water rises from roots, gases exchange with the atmosphere, and cells maintain delicate chemical balances. These processes unfold quietly within every living leaf, repeating day after day in stable patterns. Across hillsides, forests, gardens, wetlands, and city streets, leaves continue absorbing light and shaping environments through countless small exchanges. Their movements remain slow, their cycles repetitive, and their presence deeply woven into the calm rhythms of the natural world. As evening settles across forests and fields, leaves continue their quiet work without interruption. The pace slows with the fading light, but the systems within each leaf remain gently active. Water still moves through fine veins. Cells continue their silent exchanges. Air passes softly across surfaces shaped by seasons, weather, and time. In darkness, many leaves rest in a different balance than they hold during the day. Photosynthesis pauses without sunlight, yet respiration continues in calm and measured rhythms. Sugars created earlier move slowly through stems and branches, supporting roots beneath the soil and living tissues throughout the plant. Night air often cools gradually around leaves. Moisture may gather in small droplets along edges and tips. Forest canopies settle into softer movement as winds ease. The shapes of leaves become quieter in the dim light, layered together in still patterns that shift only slightly with passing air. Some leaves fold gently at night, changing position with internal biological clocks that continue even without direct sunlight. Others remain open and still, holding the same orientation until dawn slowly returns. Across different species and landscapes, each plant follows its own steady rhythm. Fallen leaves resting on the ground continue changing as well. Moisture softens their surfaces. Fungi spread slowly through delicate structures. Tiny insects move beneath the leaf litter, hidden within layers that protect the soil and hold warmth close to the earth. The transformation is gradual and continuous, impossible to hurry. Deep within forests, old leaves become part of the roots of future plants. Nutrients released back into the soil rise again through new stems and fresh spring growth. The cycle repeats without beginning or ending, moving quietly through seasons and years. The green surface of a leaf, so simple from a distance, contains countless small processes unfolding together in calm coordination. Light becomes stored energy. Water becomes vapor. Air moves in and out through microscopic openings. Tiny chemical signals pass between cells. Every part functions steadily, without noise or urgency. Wind continues to pass through trees in soft and changing patterns. Broad leaves drift and turn slightly on their stems. Needle-like leaves remain narrow and still. Rain arrives and leaves again. Sunlight filters downward through layers of canopy. The same quiet exchanges continue through warm seasons, cool evenings, and long stretches of time. Across mountains, deserts, wetlands, forests, gardens, and quiet streets lined with trees, leaves remain part of the slow movement of the living world. They emerge gradually, absorb light for a time, shift color, fall softly, and return to the soil. Nothing in the process asks for attention. Nothing rushes toward completion. The rhythm simply continues. In distant forests untouched by roads, leaves gather sunlight each morning in silence. In cities, leaves soften the edges of buildings and pavement, releasing moisture into the air and creating shade that cools the ground beneath them. Along rivers, leaves drift onto moving water and travel slowly downstream before settling into calmer places. Every leaf is temporary, yet the cycle itself remains ongoing. New growth replaces old growth. Fallen layers enrich the earth. Roots absorb nutrients again. Branches extend quietly toward light. Seasons repeat their gradual patterns over and over without interruption. As the night deepens, the movement inside leaves becomes even slower and calmer. Temperatures lower gently. Air grows softer. Moisture settles onto quiet surfaces. Trees stand in stillness while unseen processes continue beneath bark, within roots, and across every remaining leaf. Nothing needs to change quickly. Nothing needs to arrive anywhere else. The forests remain patient. The leaves remain suspended in their slow exchange with air and light and water, resting within the endless natural rhythm that continues softly through the dark. The leaves grow quieter in the cool night air. Branches rest without effort beneath the dark sky. Soft wind moves gently through the trees, and every leaf answers with a slow and delicate sound. Far above, the canopy settles into stillness. Far below, the earth remains warm beneath layers of fallen leaves resting softly together. Nothing in the forest is in a hurry. The trees do not rush. The air does not rush. Even the smallest leaf simply drifts through its quiet cycle of light, water, rest, and time. The night continues calmly around the sleeping world. Leaves hang silently in the darkness, moving only slightly with the slow passing wind. Some rest high in tall forests. Some rest beside quiet rivers. Some lie gently across the ground, becoming part of the earth again. And through it all, the forest stays calm and steady. The cool air remains soft. The darkness remains peaceful. And somewhere beyond the trees, the night continues slowly and endlessly, carrying the quiet sound of leaves through the stillness.